Chuck Lunatic Lentz from Big Rock, Illinois. Chuck has been one of our biggest supporters all year long, and it's fitting that I include a question from him in the first sound off of the new year. After watching the ending to Raw this week, my only thought was, if they were going to bring the Authority back, why not have Rollins go over Cena at TLC? It would have been a surprise finish, and they could have done a trade. Cena brings back the Authority names Cena the number one contender. Does that make sense, or is that too heel of a move for Cena's character? I wouldn't have done it that way. I would have just had a match between them without the title shot being on the line and just had Rollins beat him. Especially because it was a tables match. It's not like he'd be pinning John Cena clean in the center of the ring. Now, some people may argue, well, John Cena's getting the title shot at the Royal Rumble, so he can't lose to Seth Rollins. He should win. Sure he can. He can lose. Absolutely. Remember a little match called 3 Stages of Hell? How quickly people forget. Steve Austin and Triple H, 2001. Go look it up. Austin won the Royal Rumble that year. He was wrestling Rock for the title at WrestleMania in the main event. And the month before, he wrestled Triple H at No Way Out, and Triple H beat him. He beat Austin, who was the number one contender. Now, it would have made more sense not to turn Austin heel, in Texas no less, and have Triple H challenge him for the title after WrestleMania with Rock. He was going away to make movies. But instead they turned Austin heel, and they made them a tag team, and they never really recovered from that. Since 2001, wrestling has never been as hot as it was back then. But the point is, there's a precedent for this. You could have beaten John Cena. Seth Rollins has the briefcase. He's not a schlub. He's the top heel in the company right now. It would not have been the end of the world, and it would have been a big win for Seth Rollins. Rollins has way more to gain from a big win like that than Cena has to lose from a loss. The guy is Teflon. 10 years now, 12 years. The guy is Teflon. Okay, he can lose. They need to be in star creation mode right now. And when it comes to John Cena, they've done a poor job this year. Last year I should say. There was no reason for Bray Wyatt to lose that match to John Cena at WrestleMania. Coming off that hot feud with The Shield, I think it was Wyatt who got the pin on Roman Reigns, their boy, okay, in that first match at the Elimination Chamber. He had the big entrance at WrestleMania, performing his music, and then he loses. Then he gets a bullshit win in that cage match on the next pay-per-view, which was a joke. And then he loses again, and Wyatt has never been the same since that feud with John Cena. He's had some main events with Dean Ambrose recently, which is nice to see. But explain to me what that has to do with John Cena. You will have people that credit John Cena. Hey, look, Bray Wyatt's in the main event right now. You can credit John Cena for that. Oh, really? How do you reach that conclusion? You cannot argue that Bray Wyatt has not lost a ton of steam from where he was at the beginning of the year. You can't. The people trying to argue that Bray Wyatt is somehow better off because of the feud, because of the program with John Cena, are brain damaged. These are brain damaged people who are trying to put forth that narrative. And I won't make fun of them because it's not cool to make fun of people with brain damage, but they are. Then you look at the way they split up the Wyatt family. One of the worst splits I've ever seen. They do the first Harper vs. Rowan match on Raw as a throwaway. It means nothing. They do Wyatt vs. Rowan on SmackDown this week, and it means nothing. And why should it? Rowan was just a stepping stone for the Big Show to look strong before he loses to Roman Reigns. Rowan is not very good on his own. He's just not. And I look at all 3 members since the split, and not one of them, I would argue, is better off now than they were before. Harper could have branched out as a singles guy while he was still part of the Wyatt family. You didn't have to break him up to make him a single star. He won the Intercontinental title, didn't win a single match after that, and then lost it right back to Dolph. Now he's just sort of hanging around. You would be a fool to think that any of this was a good idea. But it's amazing to me that there are still people, including people with a platform to put this out there, that will still argue until they're blue in the face that somehow John Cena is responsible for Bray Wyatt being in main events now with Dean Ambrose. Oh, that John Cena, he sure elevated that guy. I mean, for God's sakes, take a look at what happened to Bray Wyatt. What about the fucking 5 months after that last match at Payback? Wasn't there like a month or 2 that went by where Bray Wyatt, after the Jericho feud, wasn't even on television? I mean, I'm not a John Cena hater the way that other people are, but I mean, you gotta have your head in the fucking sand to honestly think that this guy was better off because of that feud. That it actually helped make him somehow. I don't know about you, but when 2014 started, one of the first things I can remember was Bray Wyatt going out there at the Royal Rumble and having the best match on the card with Daniel Bryan and beating Daniel Bryan clean. Daniel Bryan, who was more over at that time than John Cena. He beat him in the opening match of the Royal Rumble and then got the big win. You know, the Wyatts and the Shield at the Elimination Chamber. The guy was on a roll. And then he hit a wall. He hit a wall of hustle, loyalty, and respect. But there are still people out there, the Cena apologists, who they insist, boy, you know, these people are just, they're negative ninnies. They're negative for the sake of being negative. These people are fucking brain damaged. And it's not nice to point and laugh. But I have to point it out because it's crazy to me that there are still people who honestly believe that. Imran from the UK. Boy, I'm all fired up now. Since the plan looks to be either Bryan or Reigns against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31, I was thinking, why not have Dolph Ziggler turn tweener or heel? Since the Authority has returned and Ziggler on the Raw post-show seemed kind of pissed off, why not have Ziggler cost Cena his match against Lesnar, thus starting a feud which would go to WrestleMania, and the story could be that Ziggler is pissed off that John Cena gave in to the Authority. It's not a bad idea. I really hope that Dolph Ziggler has some kind of high-profile match and they don't just stick him in the Andre Battle Royal. I think that would be a complete waste. And I don't see that, you know, Dolph Ziggler being the guy to beat Rusev. So it's like, what other match do you put him in? I did pitch the idea for a match with Triple H, if they wanted to take Sting and put him with The Undertaker. All of this is predicated on The Undertaker wrestling, which I'm still not sure he is or not. But Ziggler-Triple H would be a big match for Ziggler. Ziggler-Cena, yeah, I mean, that would be a huge match, but I do worry. You know, I worry about the outcome and what may happen. Ziggler's another one. Got a big win on pay-per-view over John Cena. Big conquering win with the Money in the Bank briefcase high in the air. He had AJ Lee with him. And, you know, it kind of goes back to me being angry earlier when I was talking about them squandering that Cesaro win over Randy Orton, who was the champion at that time. When you give big wins like that away against the top stars in the company, don't fucking squander it. Take advantage of it. Make a new star out of it. And they had that chance with Ziggler, but after Ziggler beat Cena in that ladder match at TLC 2 years ago, it was, you know, or 3 years ago now, they did nothing. I mean, they brought it back on Raw and Cena beat him, and that was it. It's like, why even bother? So I would worry about that. I would hope that this time things, you know, were a little bit different. Although if Ziggler was the heel, you could have Cena beat him. I guess it wouldn't be the end of the world to have John Cena beat, you know, Dolph Ziggler if he was a heel. I almost think there would be more juice in doing a babyface match between the two of them and let the fans cheer for whoever they want to cheer for. Because look, in storyline, Dolph Ziggler has a legitimate gripe. Look at all the hell that the Authority put this guy through for weeks and weeks and weeks. And he gets the big pinfall at Survivor Series. He's heralded as the big hero who helped oust the Authority, him and Sting. And in one fell swoop, John Cena says, I bring back the Authority. And that just makes Dolph Ziggler's life a living hell. Dolph Ziggler should be pissed off at John Cena. He should confront him. Jeremy, first-time emailer, if by some miracle another promotion was to start beating the crap out of WWE in the ratings, what actions do you think WWE would take to win back their audience? Possibly going back to an attitude style of programming, turn Cena heel, or something completely different? See, that's the beautiful thing about competition, right? It really is the best motivator. It's also one of the great tragedies of WCW going out of business, even though they deserved it. You know, it's impossible to say exactly what they would do. I don't think they would go back to pushing the envelope like they did back then because it's just a different time. You know, everything is different. Society is different. Television is different. The company is different. It's so much more corporate. You know, they've got the PG initiative because they have sponsors that they don't want to lose. And they have the relationship with Mattel. And they have deals with Kmart and all these other companies. And they don't want to jeopardize that. So no, I don't think we would suddenly see a return to the Attitude Era. I would like to think that what we would see is they would make an even better effort to phase down some of the guys like Orton and Cena. And when I say phase down, look, they're big stars. So if you're competing against another company, I'm not saying take John Cena and Randy Orton off TV. They're two of your biggest stars. What I'm saying is phase them down in that you put more of the focus on the newer guys. You have to get newer faces over. And just do the right thing. They do so many little things wrong, and it makes you scratch your head. Like, why did they do that? Why did they make that decision? Why did they do that? You know, cut the bullshit. Cut the bullshit and get back to doing what you do best. That's why people are turning away in droves. That's why more people are listening to my podcast, and they don't even watch the show anymore. They just listen to me so they can get a recap of what's going on. It shouldn't be that way. Everybody who's listening to a wrestling podcast should be a wrestling fan who watches a wrestling show. And just using me and my show as, you know, an example, I'm seeing just the opposite. And that's kind of scary. I mean, I'm happy they're listening to me, but that's kind of scary. People ask me all the time, you know, if you didn't do the podcast, would you still be watching Raw every single week? Honestly, I don't think so. I wouldn't stop watching completely, but would I watch all 3 hours every single week? No, I don't think I would. And I don't think I would miss it either. I mean, I would miss, you know, having good wrestling and you know, exciting, fun stuff to watch, but I don't think I would miss the droning promos and the pointless matches and the comedy. And no, I think that's why a lot of people have been able to turn it off. So it's not like, well, you got to turn John Cena heel and you got to start showing tits and ass again. I don't think you have to do that. I think you just have to put forth a product that people don't feel insulted by, that people aren't angered by. If guys start to get over on their own, guess what? Don't hide from it. Don't bury them just because they're getting over on their own. Run with it. You know, do a better job of kind of feeling the pulse of who's over and who's not, and going with your hot hand. And I don't think they do that enough. I think they have to kind of mold and shape things the way that they want it to be, and they got their army of writers, and that's what they pay them for. And so if they don't come up with something and it happens organically, it's almost like they're offended by that. You know, I just think they have to do a better job of listening to their audience. That's not that hard.